guys, welcome back to another tutorial. This month I show you how I draw hair. It's been super requested, and today I thought I'm just gonna tackle the topic of drawing hair because I've been afraid of doing so for a long time. And I'm going to give you some general tips that I always follow, and I'm going to show you how I do different hairlines and hair types, and also some of my favorite hairstyles. And I'm also going to show you how I draw hair using reference photos, and I'm also going to show you how I color hair. So let's get your sketchbooks out, get your iPad out, or whatever you use to draw, and I hope you enjoy it. If you have questions at the end of the video, leave them down below. And now let's jump right in. Alright, I prepared some faces, and first of all, let's talk about the brush I use. So for sketching, I use the Terrace Oval Sketch 2. I talked about that one all the time, so you probably heard me saying that quite a lot. Okay, my very first tip when you draw hair would be to see the hair as one shape, and not draw individual hair strands in the beginning. So you just basically start out by imagining how you would want the hair to be like. That just makes everything easier. So here you can see me kind of just drawing in the outlines of the hair. And here I just show you, like, this is how it would look like if you would draw in individual hair strands, and it just looks so weird. So you should not do that. So instead, imagine everything as one shape. So almost like those, like Lego hair, you just put the whole thing on the head. Just imagine it to be like this in the very beginning, just to figure out the shapes and everything. My next tip would be to always go upwards at the roots, because every hair, no matter the texture, has a natural volume. Some have more, some have less, but it definitely looks weird if you don't put, like, if you don't give everything a little bit of volume. So yeah, you can see it looks kind of flat. It almost looks like she has wet hair. So if you want to draw wet hair, that's fine, but if you draw dry hair, you should always go upwards at the roots, even just a little bit. So next is, I always add in individual hair strands at the very end. Not the very end, but once I figured everything out, like how the shape should look like and the hairline and everything like that, I like to add individual hair strands. And it's much easier if you imagine everything to be one shape in the beginning and then add them in later, because this way it looks much more natural and also more clean. So here you can see me drawing in the whole thing. I colored it because it was confusing with the lines, and then you see me drawing in some individual hair, and just to kind of let people see the overall texture of the hair and not so much every single hair. So it is much easier to draw it like that. Okay, and my last tip that I generally would give you is always think about where the parting of the hair goes, and then depending on the side, give the hair more or less volume. So if you have a middle part, both sides have the same amount of volume. If you put it to the side like this one, like there's one side that has much more volume and the other side hasn't as much volume, as you can see. So always think about that to make everything look more natural. And here you can see me drawing in like the perfect middle parting, and both sides have about the same amount of volume. To give you a quick summary, the first tip I gave you is to think about the overall shape first. Second one is to go upwards at the roots to give everything a volume, which is very, very important. Third one was to add in individual strands of hair at the end, not in the beginning, so it is more easy and it also gives more life. And the last one is to think about how much volume each side of hair has. So this always depends on the parting, also the hair texture, but we talk about that later. Okay, next we're gonna talk about the different hairlines. And I prepared just a couple of different hairlines, but here you can see me drawing in my go-to hairline that I always use. Then there's a heart shape hairline, which I have, by the way. And then we also have a receding hairline, maybe if you want to draw like older man or I don't know. And then there's also smaller foreheads or bigger foreheads. You can adjust to whatever you want. And here I just did some adjustments to the heart shape because it looked a lot like the receding hairline one. And then depending on the hairline, the hairstyles will look different. So here I just kind of wanted to show you the difference the hairline makes. So on the heart shape, like a bun or a ponytail or whatever I drew there, it looks much different from, it looks very different from the small, it looks very different compared to the small forehead. Okay, so next I want to show you some different hair textures, and the first one is just a very straight one, thinner hair and just straight to the bottom, and this is how I would draw it. The next one is wavy hair. It has a little bit more volume, so you go more upwards at the roots just a little bit, and then you kind of draw in a couple of waves and then the rest later. So the individual hair, as you can see here, comes at the end. This is probably like my favorite one. The next one is curly hair. So you basically draw in the shape again at the beginning, but make the line very curly and curvy, and then add in individual hair strands. And the next one is afro and coily hair, which is almost like the curly hair, but it has even more curls. And this one, I draw it like that, and usually at the end I go in with textured brushes to kind of show that really cool look with the hair. And here I just wanted to show you how I would draw different hairstyles, like regular open hair, the way I always do it. And put some hair accessories in there because I thought it looked cute. And then this is how I would draw a ponytail. So I always start with the fringe or bangs or whatever word you want to use. And then I like draw in the ponytail. And most of the time you don't see the whole scrunchie because it is a little more far behind. And I also like the ponytails that I draw to look very loose, so I add in a lot of extra individual hair. And then there's the side braid, which is also one of my favorites. And here I decided to not draw a fringe because I did that in the ones before, and I cannot really explain how I do it, but just watch it and I don't know, try to recreate it. It took me quite a while to learn how to draw a braid because I think it is very confusing for some reason. And sometimes I still need reference. And I also like those ones to look very loose, so I also add in a lot of extra hair. So it looks kind of messy and I really like that. And then there are some space buns. I think they're very popular at the moment. Or maybe I am old school already. Maybe they are not in trend anymore, but I really wanted to draw some space buns because it's a good way for you to see how I would draw the buns and then also the texture. So this is how I would draw it again. I always draw my hair very, very loose. It's just kind of my go-to thing. If you don't want it that loose, just don't give the hair as much volume. And then this is how I would draw short hair. This is also always very requested to draw short hair. I really like that because you can also give the hair a lot of movement and it looks very cute, and secretly I wish I could pull it off, but I can't. But yeah, I would draw it like that. And then there's another favorite hairstyle of mine, which is the half updo. So here I'm thinking about the hairline first, and then I add in the part that is up, and at the end I draw in the loose hair and also the hair that is just open. Next, I show you once again how I would draw bangs. I did that a couple of times now already. I didn't realize that when I painted that, but whatever. I'm just gonna show you again. So I always start with the putting in some, adding in some chunky parts of the fringe, and then once again thinking about the shape first and then adding in the individual hair strands. And then this is how I would draw a bun. I like the bun part to not look perfectly round. I like it to be a little bit messy and yeah, not like a circle, more like having it has a couple of edges. I really like that. But you can do it however you prefer. So here we go. Those were some of my favorite hairstyles to draw and some examples. And now we're gonna jump right into drawing hair from reference. So I prepared 4 different reference pictures. The first one is just simple straight hair, and then we have curly hair, we have a bun, and we have a ponytail. And the ponytail one is from a side angle because I realized that I only showed you the hairstyles from the front. So now here I'm gonna make sure to draw them from the side sometimes as well, so a little different from the reference pictures, but it's all about the hair. I'm gonna speed up the process of sketching the faces because this is just not what this tutorial is about. Alright, so here I'm just figuring out the hairline and her parting, and she has a teeny tiny bit of volume, so I'm adding that. And then I just go in like this. I use the terrace over sketch, by the way. Don't forget the hair on the back. So yeah, that one was easy, wasn't it? The next one is curly short hair. So I start off by kind of figuring out the whole shape again, and then drawing in the fringe, just making everything look very, very messy, and I'm not really using straight lines at all. Also, you can see more hair of the front, or let's say of her right side, because she is facing that side to us, and you can see like less on the back on her left side. And then the next one is a bun with bangs and a little hair accessory, which was really cute. So again, I'm starting with her bangs, and then I am trying to figure out like the size of her head from on the back, and then giving it some volume. And then here I add the hair accessory and the bun, and then some loose hair. And since this was very, very messy, I lowered the opacity and did a more clean sketch on top so you can see it better. You can always give a lot of volume and depth if you add in the individual hairlines. So again, I start off with the bangs. I guess I always do that. And then just check the reference. I always add more volume to the hair than on my reference pictures. So as you can see, they always have more volume just because I like that look. And I also like all my hairstyles to be very messy. So a lot of extra hair. Okay, so here we go. Those are the 4 hairstyles that I drew with reference. And now I'm going to show you how I color hair with the girl with the ponytail, because I think this is the perfect example because she has a bangs, so I can show you how I color that, because I had problems coloring bangs when I started drawing. And then also it has an updo, so it has the ponytail, and then it also has some loose hair because of the hair that is falling down. So let's go. Now I forgot to record the part where I color everything. I just added basic colors. If you want to know how I do that, head over to my how I draw faces tutorial. I basically explained everything in there. So the first thing I do is I add in those lines that you can see from the sketch. And to do that, I add another layer, which I set to multiply, and I use a warm bright color, and I always use the dry ink brush because I like the texture in there, and then I just paint in the lines. And the next thing I do is I add some shadows to the lines. So I just repeat the same step. I add another layer, put it to multiply, select a warm bright color, and then I kind of give more depth to everything. It is hard to explain, but you can see what kind of difference it makes if you add shadows to the lines. So it really gives everything a lot of volume, and it looks, yeah, it looks just not much better. Much more real if you do that. Don't add the shadow to the entire hair and to the entire hair strand, just on some parts. And the next thing I do is I add another layer, which I set to multiply, and I use a very grainy textured brush, and here I use the Bonobo chalk brush, and I basically painted in some darker roots and also some shadows. This is like the first layer of shadows and depth. And don't worry if you overpainted anything. I did the same, and you can see me here erasing the parts that did not mean to be there. If it's too dark, you can lower the opacity. And then I add another layer on top, and I add some lighter hair, and I do that by setting the layer to soft light, and just with a dry ink brush I add some individual hair, but this time they're lighter and it looks more natural. And then the next thing I do is I add another layer again and set it to multiply again. Yes, I use multiply quite a lot. And I kind of paint in bigger shadows. And I like to paint them in as a whole shape once again. And if you just look at some of my other illustrations, you will see that I do that quite a lot. And here I do same thing, but with highlights. I add another layer. I set it to overlay this time. And I select a bright color and basically add in the same shapes to the places that I feel like need some highlights. And don't be confused by the color. I will lower the opacity in the end and it looks much more natural. I also erase the outlines to make it look more clean. And then I lower the opacity so it matches the whole illustration. Then I add another layer, which is set to normal. I color pick the hair color, and this is my absolute favorite part. I add in some individual hair to the outer edges of the whole hair shape. And I love that part. I know I've been saying that a million times, but it's just so relaxing. So if you ever feel stressed, I strongly suggest you to draw some hair. And I color pick here and there and give some different tones. And then I also like to add some little dots and points of highlights and lowlights. I don't even know what this is, what I paint there, but it just kind of got into a habit and now I really like it. So I do that by adding another layer on multiply using the dry ink brush and just adding in some like dots where shadows are, and I do the same thing with highlights. I set the layer to overlay and then I add in some just like kind of speckles of light, I would say, and I always lower the opacity of these ones because otherwise they would be way too strong. And once I feel like I am done with the hair, I select all layers, make them into a group, duplicate the group and flatten the duplicated group so everything is on one layer now. And I do that so I can add one last round of highlights and shadows because I am obsessed like that. And I add another layer, set it to overlay, apply a clipping mask so I only draw where the illustration is and not on the outside. And I just apply some highlights like that. I do the same thing with shadows. I set everything to multiply, apply a clipping mask again, select the soft brush, and then go in where the shadows are to just deepen them a little bit more. So now I group all of these 3 layers again into one layer, flatten it, and then I apply my usual curves and levels. If you want a tutorial about this one, it's the third part of my 3-part tutorial of how I draw a face. I explain exactly how I do this, but yeah, this is the last step that I do. Now, as a little bonus thing that I kind of forgot to talk about, is I wanted to show you how I draw a hair with a gradient. To do that, you have to draw the entire hair color on one layer and then apply an alpha lock on the layer so you only draw on the hair. You can also work with clipping mask or select the layer however you want. The important thing is that you only draw on the layer where the hair is. And then I select a soft brush and a dark color for the roots and just lightly brush over it from the top. And here you can see me erasing out everything where the color shouldn't be because I did not select alpha lock. And then you just choose the color you want the tips to be. So this is some pink or like blonde tips. Just like that. So you just kind of brush it in. It's very easy. If you have the soft brush, it is really easy. So this is it. This is everything I know about drawing hair. I hope it was helpful to you and I hope you could learn something. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for supporting me on Patreon. It honestly means the world to me. And I hope you have a great day. If you have questions, leave them in the comments down below. And yeah, I love you. Bye.